would seem we are recording. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Good to have you here. Thank you for participating. Let us, in part 3, finish this Go Show, the reply to Hakiri Saburo, I believe is the title. Oops. Excuse me. Fumbling old man. And Nichiren continues. King Ajatasattu was an evil man who killed his father and imprisoned his mother. Nevertheless, when he came to the assembly where the Buddha was preaching the Nirvana Sutra and heard the teachings of the Lotus Sutra, not only did he recover from the sores that had broken out in his present existence as a result of his evil deeds, but his life was prolonged by 40 years, and even though he did not originally possess roots of resolute mind and conviction, in the end, he reached the first stage of security and was given the Buddha's prediction that he would attain Buddhahood. So let's decrypt that first paragraph, lest I won't be doing this with each paragraph because we'll end up invariably with a part 4. So, but I think it's important to remember as we study all these Goshos and Sutras, the style of teaching, the expedient means style. So listen as you read, which you've heard me say before, Buddhism is about the mental process, the way our mind works. So when Nichiren says this king who was evil killed his father and mother, or imprisoned his mother, whether that's an actual historical fact or not isn't important to Buddhism. What is important is that think of a man, such as yourself, or a woman, such as yourself, who harbors such evil thoughts about your father that you would bury him without a second thought. And your mother, you might enjoy her, seeing her in a really horrible environment. So you put her in prison so she can suffer at your discretion. Think of how where your mind would be in order to be okay with that. Then you come to the assembly where Buddha was preaching the Nirvana Sutra and heard the teachings of the Lotus Sutra. So you started to study. You started to look into this thing called Buddhism. And you came to these ultimate teachings of the Lotus Sutra. Just by doing that, to make the effort to actually read it, to actually study it, would influence greatly your mind. You would start to think differently about stuff. Perhaps not about your father and mother, but the world in general would look differently to you. You would start to understand your role in the world that you're in. And so simple things like pimples or acne or sores in this case that had broken out, sounds like pimples, would start to go away. Your physiology would change as your mind changes. Remember, in the earlier teachings of Buddhism, Shakyamuni struggled with just getting people to understand that relationship. So by the time we get to the Lotus Sutra, and certainly Nichiren, this is just a given. Just understand that as you change your mind, so do you change your physical self and environment. His life was prolonged by 40 years. Simply, in simple terms, means, look, we don't know when our life is going to end, but our life condition is either conducive for longevity or not. So the implication is here, not only did your acne resolve, but your health, your good health, your what is it, immune system. It looks good for you to be healthy for a good long while, simply because you've changed your attitude. And even though he didn't originally possess roots of resolute mind and conviction in the sutra, right? He started learning and studying and reading, had a lot of doubt. He was like, well, let's look into this. At least that's a proper cause. But that doesn't mean he didn't read a chapter and go, I don't know, and then get back to it, and so on and so forth. As many of us do. When we first start to study Buddhism, the rhetoric alone, which is why I'm here doing this, can be very off-putting, or if not outright unreadable. But once you start seeing a glimmer of the logic, it becomes quite interesting, because it's very intimate, it's very personal, it's about your mind. Why wouldn't you be curious, right? And so eventually, he reached the first stage of security and was given the Buddhist prediction that he would attain Buddhahood. This simply means that he realized the value of the teachings, and that what Nichiren has been talking about, the perfect precepts, he got it, that Buddhahood was here and now. His Buddha-ness was available to him should he decide to apply himself to awaken it. That's what that means. So I'm pointing this out on this one paragraph because it's easy to get caught up in the storytelling and the rhetoric, and it kind of distances the teachings from us. At least in our modern age it does. At one time when people were very, very influenced by what they read, the story itself was enough to exalt their feelings about the story, the teaching. But that doesn't mean they took it intimately into themselves. Today we can do that at the snap of a finger. So I urge you, when you read this, to understand that this is very intimate. Devadatta was a man of incorrigible disbelief. He was very smart, but it was almost like his smartness got in his way of really owning, being intimate with the teaching. He was just satisfied with being able to espouse and quote anything he wanted, and there he could justify things and make, string together any amount of knowledge or data without integrating it for its meaning, its essential. That word truths comes back, but the reality, the experiential reality of what is being taught here. So Devadatta was a man of incorrigible disbelief, the worst in the entire land of Jambudvipa. In all the earlier sutras preached during the lifetime of the Buddha, he was cast aside as hopeless. He knows it all intellectually, but he doesn't get it. But he encountered the Lotus Sutra and was granted a prediction that he would become a Buddha called Thus Come One Heavenly King. So the assurance of his study, his constant study, eventually got through his thick, hard opposition to intimacy, and he got it. This applies to me. It isn't just words. It means I can do this. I'm already doing this. Hello? Right? That's what we call aha moments, insight, deep insight. Judging from these examples, we may conclude that for evil people living in the latter day or age, the attainment of Buddhahood depends not upon whether their offenses are light or grave, but solely upon whether or not they have resolute mind and conviction in this sutra. Yeah. In your case, you are a member, this is Saburo now, in your case, you are a member of a warrior family, an evil man who day and night is involved in the business of killing. You're a samurai. Since you have not left your household to become a priest or monk, but have remained a warrior to the present, by what means can you escape the three evil paths? Should you not think about this very carefully? Ouch. So the letter that he's responding to was not mean-spirited, but full of doubt that, well, who are you, Nichiren, to tell me the Buddha's teachings, right? What proof do you have of who you are? So Nichiren gives him all the proof, and then he comes back at him. All right, Mr. Samurai full of doubt, take a look at yourself. Why do you even study Buddhism, right? I mean, Nichiren, no bones here, right? The heart of the Lotus Sutra is the revelation that one may attain supreme enlightenment in one's present form without altering one's status as an ordinary person. An ordinary person being, whether they're a farmer or a samurai, another slight of a sort, if you will, but ordinary in the sense that you're not dedicated with your resolve in the Buddhist teachings, in the sutra. Your resolve is obviously waning or rocky if you're asking me these questions. So therefore, you're just like anybody else. You're an ordinary person. Not ordinary in modern terms like your state of education or your job or status of any sort. Ordinary in terms of your dedication to Buddhist practice. Follow? This means that without casting aside one's karmic impediments, one can still attain the Buddha way. So in this teaching, even though you are a samurai, staying in the service of samurais, killing people every day, that is your business, only through this Lotus Sutra, with resolute mind in your practice, can you continue to awaken and develop your Buddha wisdom and achieve, at some point, your enlightenment. How amazing is that? Because it's again, I'll say it again, Buddhahood or Buddha-ness is ever present. It's already here. You don't need to go anywhere to find it. The only reason you're not experiencing it in every moment is because of your daily activities, which take you away, which are attachments, which are otherness, the impediments to your seeing the ultimate of the life process of what we're dealing with, of dealing with in the sense of living along or within. Words, sometimes I really dislike them. Thus Tendai said, quote, the other sutras only predict Buddhahood. You can attain it for the good, but not for the evil, like some kind of disciplinary measure. But surely if it's available 24/7 all the time, regardless of time, then why would there be a distinction between a good or evil? The only distinction is that people who endeavor in evil activities are so preoccupied with what they do that they don't take the time to awaken. That's a little different slant, right? This Lotus Sutra predicts Buddhahood for all. So this is extremely egalitarian. When you get to the ultimate teaching of Buddhism, you find that there are no qualifiers other than a dedication to Namu. When you dedicate your life, then no matter what samsaric errors you commit, they do not surmount your dedication to your awakening, your Buddhahood. When they do, that is when you are an ordinary person and of incorrigible disbelief or full of doubt, and it takes you away from your, what? Dedication to awaken, dedication to your Buddha-ness. It's so primal, so easy to understand in words. And Miao Lo said, quote, the meaning of the perfect teaching lies solely in the fact that those who oppose can be saved as well as those who follow. In the other three teachings, the fate of these two types of people is fixed. because you've created these grave offenses against your own Buddha-ness, then you'll never attain it. Well, in the Lotus Sutra, that's not true. That's not actual. That's not doable, really. But until we get to the ultimate teaching, the Lotus Sutra, and its support document, the Nirvana Sutra, this wasn't made explicitly clear. It's always been there, but because of levels of teaching, it wasn't always made explicitly clear, as it is in the Lotus. Continuing. Although I should write something about whether or not the Buddha way can be gained in various degrees, depending on the sutras preached prior to the Lotus Sutra, this is a matter to be discussed with someone thoroughly familiar with Buddhist terms and categories. However, there are disciples to whom I have taught the essentials on this point. You should summon them and hear the gist of the matter from them. At that time, I will write you further on the subject. So that's interesting. Again, a support for Sangha, a support for discussion amongst those in your environment who hopefully are your superior in their superior only in that they've spent more time and dedicated more of their lives, consequently, to the Buddha way, the Buddhist path, the Buddhist method. And as I am always keen to say, expands their practice as well. This is the meaning of Sangha. It's not a one-way authoritarian thing. Sangha means a collective of like-minded, right? The term itai doshin you might hear, many in body but one in mind. So this was a reply to Nambu Rokuro Saburo of Kai province. This letter was written on Sado in response to doubts raised by Hakiri Rokuro Saburo, also known as Nambu Rokuro Saburo. Hakiri Saburo is thought to have been a son of Hakiri Seninaga, the steward of Minobu, the district where Nichiren lived in his latter years. Saburo has asked Nichiren, who called himself a votary of the Lotus Sutra, had gone so many difficulties when he should have been enjoying peace and security. So, I don't have to reread all of this. But, it's in the book for reference. With that, we conclude this reply, which gave Nichiren quite a few opportunities to talk about, quite simply, the method of practice. If you can practice this Buddhism just routinely by reading some stories and chanting, and sometimes get a Gohonzon even and set up an altar and spend some time in front of Gohonzon, and you can have all sorts of things going through your mind that aren't particularly helpful in your Buddhist practice, but you can convince yourself that trying to empty your mind or whatever other current cliche we're attached to is what has you doing your practice, and just call it your daily meditation, and all of that is fine, because your Buddha-ness doesn't care. What it does care about, only cares about, is your commitment to it. And if you think deeply on this, you'll find that no matter what it is that we do in life, when we turn our focus deeply on any activity as human beings, we tend to draw forth from our environs support, certainly within our own minds. We call it justification, or we call it, it's just the way it is. To the degree that we're aware of other forms of thought, we make ourselves into that which we focus on. I mean, this isn't new thinking, right? In the 70s, they used to call it positive thinking, probably before that, but that's what I remember. I remember whole books on, think it, be it, or just do it, or whatever. There's memes galore about this idea that if we focus our energies on something, we ultimately achieve it, maybe at varying degrees, but perhaps that's varying degrees of commitment as well. So Buddha knew this 3,000 years ago. So it's been around for quite some time. The difference is that in Buddhism, there's an ultimate reality, an ultimate knowing, a final point to which, if you get it, then everything else resolves. It's not specialized to treat one thing, and it's completely a mental exercise. But as we've seen, that mental exercises manifests itself physically in our bodies, in our environment, even if you continue to extrapolate it into the health and welfare of your neighborhood, your family, your community, your, dare I say, country, your planet. Yes, those are far removed from yourself, but they're really not. If you want to think about how you affect a planet, think of the size of the Earth within the immensity of just this galaxy, which is unfathomably large. And then tell yourself, oh yeah, there's 100 billion million of these galaxies in this space. How tiny is the Earth? So of course you can influence it. Everything's a matter of scale, right? So, rather than staring at this lens any longer, I'm going to let you go. Thanks again for participating, being part of this Sangha. It's so immense. Just pause for a moment and consider that. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you so much. Your support is precious. Keep going. Keep going. We're in struggling times. There's a lot of crazy crap going on in the world today. Don't let it dissuade you from your practice. Use your practice as a force field around you and your family and your loved ones to protect yourselves against what could be, in a fraction of a second, very traumatic. Let's protect ourselves, okay? Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. See you next time.